Today, we're going to talk about how serving others helps strengthen us spiritually and build a closer relationship with the Lord. So, over the last several weeks, we've been talking about our first important dynamic in overcoming adversity, which is drawing closer to God. And as we think about what happens in life and the trials, the struggles, that just inevitably come, they tend to make us focus inwardly. We're focused on ourself. How do I get out of this problem? How do I get out of uh, this relationship issue? What do I need to do? And a lot of times it can lead us toward a mentality of self-pity. We don't like to say that word about ourselves, but we can get so focused on ourselves, it becomes like a bad hee-haw song, woe is me. And so today we really want to talk about breaking that cycle, that self-focus paradigm that can happen. And that is in serving others. So our action step would be to look for opportunities to serve other people every single day. It doesn't have to be big things, it can be small things, even those fairly minor things like a smile or just helping someone, opening a door. Things like that can really touch somebody else's life, especially if they're going through something difficult. And in turn, that feeds back to us and helps us to feel better as we're able to help others. So there's a proverb, chapter 11, verse 25. It says, "He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." So he or her, uh, as you serve other people and try to refresh other people, it comes back to you and you get blessed in it. And we know from a biblical point of view that that's very true. And we'll look today at why that's true. But we know the studies show that when we get our focus off of ourselves, going through difficulty, that we can really help to improve our mood and our attitude. And from a spiritual perspective, when we're obedient to God by serving others and by really trying to reorient our lives away from something that's could be have become a self-focus, that there's a great spiritual blessing in it and creates the greatest potential for us to be blessed as well. So we're going to dive into that a little bit further here as we think, why serve others? Okay. Well, as we just discussed, the primary reason is this focus, right? So as we see others' needs, it gives us a little bit greater sensitivity toward other people. It's really easy to kind of go around through your day and you're focused on the problem and you just become oblivious to what's going on in other people's lives around you. And sometimes people even just say that. You're so focused on what you're going through, you didn't even notice what I'm going through. So there's a sensitivity that gets developed, or we get a little greater awareness and sensitivity to others' needs and how what we do can impact their situation, can impact their attitude. So as we said, a prescription for misery is to hyper focus on your situation, on what you're going through, what we're going through, what I'm going through, and it prevents us from seeing the potential for God's help. It creates some hopelessness. Sometimes that self-focus, that's really where it leads. So it doesn't serve us well. Self-pity, self-focus really leads us away from where our help is. And it prevents us from really being attuned to what's going on in others' lives. So I would say serving others invites God's action as well to your situation. Now, serving is an act of faith. So when you trust God to take care of your situation, you are really following the seeking first principle, the seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be added unto you. So it's loosing that idea that if I just step away from trying to be my best solution to what I'm going through, and I trust God, so that trust moves me to, that's an action. It trusts me to look at other people and try to help other people in the midst of my situation, and I'm trusting God to take care of me. That's the seek first the kingdom of God, and all the other things will be added unto you, as Jesus said. So serving is an act of faith, and it's an act of faith that Jesus promised would be rewarded. Serving is also an act of love, as faith requires action. We said it's belief plus action. So also does love. Love's not just a feeling. Our culture really doesn't know a lot about love. We focus a lot on the feelings, and especially the romantic side of it all. But love is much more than a feeling. It's a commitment to another person's well-being. It's actually a statement of value. And how is that commitment and that statement lived out? Well, it may come from a feeling of warmth and a feeling of care that we have for another person, we think of romantic relationship, but it's also can come from the feeling of care, concerning, compassion to any person. That's why, Jesus said, love your enemies, love those who despitefully treat you and mistreat you and abuse you. So in our culture, it's like, this person's a bad person, so treat them horribly. Well, that's not what Jesus said at all. And you see this constantly, these threads run in our society. Who is the latest villain that we've created? That we've, the politically correct, or the culture of the society is trying to vilify in the moment. We all think of the Hitler type personality or person, but some of the worst people that we can think of in our minds, people who are responsible for the death of so many people, but yet God says those people, who abuse you and mistreat you in your life, we're to try to love them. We're to try to do good by them, and that's a pretty hard teaching for many of us. We think, well, that person who's an abuser in my life, how do I love that person? That person who's trying to destroy my life, how do I love that person? Well, part of what love does is create an environment of safety and security. So if someone is telling you they love you and they're not, and they're actually doing the exact opposite of safety and security, abusing you and taking advantage of you in a way that has significant negative consequences in your life, that's a relationship that you have to distance yourself from. So we can look across society, socially, how we respond to people who are villainized, and that we should not get caught up in the spirit of that. But when it comes down to our own personal lives, we can't do that to a person either. We can't just vilify a person and say, well, because you're a villain in my life, I don't have to love you. We still have to find a way to have peace and to love others, and we have to confront in love and speak the truth in love about what people are doing in our lives and how they're doing that. But we kind of get off in a little bit of a bunny trail here, but it is a very important way of serving, and we tend to not want to make or try to make peace with those who are causing a lot of harm in our lives, and it's not God's way. But we do have to confront, and in the confronting, sometimes the confronting even, Matthew 18, where Jesus said, go one on one, and just you and them. Don't make it a big public affair. Just you go. Don't gossip. Just go confront the problem. And then if that doesn't work, take a friend with you, take a witness with you, and go and try to confront the problem. And if that doesn't happen, then bring your spiritual community, your leadership, and say, hey, there's a problem here. And I've actually experienced this where someone in our church came to us as church leadership and said, hey, my husband is abusing me and physically, and I don't know what to do. And she had two little girls, and what to do about that. And so we as a board and a church leadership met with that individual, and we said, look, this behavior cannot continue. This is not right. And that doesn't always work. And I'm not sure that ultimately that did end everything. But so when it doesn't work, when it fails, what do? You have to distance yourself in that relationship. So we're not saying that you continue to live in an abusive situation like that, where you would, your physical, you would be physically at risk, or your family would be physically at risk. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't stop loving. From a God's point of view, you may not have the feelings, because again, love is a commitment to another's well-being. It's a statement of value, and even the person who's abusing us or has abused us, they still have value, and we still have to live out a commitment before God of trying to do the right thing by them. But that doesn't mean we need to go closer into a relationship with somebody who's proven that they cannot love us and cannot treat us with the same kind of value and be the same level of commitment with us. We're to love others as we love ourselves. So a person who cannot create an environment for safety or security for us is not a person we should be deepening our emotional or our relational ties with. It's a person we need to start to withdraw from and distance. And if that can't be fixed, then maybe that means complete withdrawal from them in our lives. Again, does not negate us from having the requirement to love them and to commit to their well-being whenever we have opportunity, or to have value. That does not give us a license for revenge. This is where we need to start to walk down a path of forgiveness, and forgiveness is the commitment to their well-being. It is a statement of value. It isn't optional from Jesus' perspective or from God's perspective. Forgiveness may be a process that takes time. It is a way to serve. It is a way to love another person, but it may take a little bit of time to get there. But it's basically a legal pronunciation that you make, that you release this person from what they've done. So we've taken kind of a little sidebar route here on serving as love and how we love other people, even if sometimes it's in a very difficult kind of situation. But that's not really our focus here. But there are those who part of their problem or the adversity they face really is about relationships, or particularly a relationship with a significant other, maybe a family member, or a spouse, or a child, or a parent. And so these principles are really important in how we deal with those kinds of very difficult relationships, and how we love a person like that, and how we serve a person like that, as we live out this principle. And so that's what we've just walked through, and I hope that's helpful to you. And the ultimate goal always is that eventually a person will come to the point where they'll recognize what they've done, and they'll ask forgiveness of you, and that relationship really can be mended and restored. But you can forgive, and the other person may not take any acknowledgement of what they've done, or they may not ask for your forgiveness. They may just continue along the same path they've always been on. But that doesn't mean you can't forgive them, because you can. That's between you and God. It's what you choose to do and the way you view them, and you can move on without them ever moving on by just giving that over to God and forgiving that person. And when I say just, that doesn't mean it's easy. It takes time, but forgiveness happens, and the feelings may take a year or longer to catch up with what you've done. But as you live that out, and as you love a person by forgiving them, and you serve a person by forgiving them, and just, all that goes with that, you will find freedom from that over time. And that's been my personal experience. And it's a promise of Scripture that we see obedience to God really does make a difference in our lives. So there's the hard cases. And serving can mend relationships. So that's if it goes the wrong way. Now we're going to talk a minute about how serving can mend relationships, and we can have a positive outcome. So it will help others to esteem you more, and it will build your esteem for them as you serve, even in small ways. And it's important to note that it's without expectation of reward. So if you're going in there from a selfish point of view, then that is not going to have the spiritual power, or the really that will be sensed, and it will not have the relational impact as well. So this is really about without publicizing what you're doing, not saying, well, I did this for you, you should do this for me. It's without any kind of expectation of reward for what you do. It's just serving so that you can show that other person that you care about them, you value them, you esteem them, and that you're really doing it for God. So God sees what you're doing. And that is the power of what we have heard is the Love Dare, the book. And there was a popular movie based on that book, and it showed how a husband and wife, a husband who had been caught in pornography, and his wife was really devastated, and they were going to break up. And then how by him serving his wife and really trying to show her, as much as she felt devalued by what he had done, and through that addiction, he was trying to show her by his actions how he valued her, how he was committed to her, how he wanted to keep her safe and secure. And it has ups and downs, right? Because that doesn't happen overnight. But the commitment to do that can be a very quick one-time decision. Hey, I'm going to do this. And so you can use the power of serving, and serving in love, and serving your spouse, or your a family member. You can use that to heal. And I mean, you can radically see radical change in the relationship. You can see powerful healing works happen over time as you follow this principle. And it really doesn't take a long time. In as little as 6 weeks, you can make a big difference in the way you feel about the relationship by serving, and also affecting the way the other person sees the relationship. So if a relationship is part of the particular adversity you're going through right now, here are some things that you can do to really maximize the potential for change in that. And so we've just talked about the power and how it can make a positive impact through doing the kind of the Love Dare type approach, which is just really using the power of love and what love really is to to do something that communicates the value that you have for a person. And by doing that, even when you don't have the feelings of love, maybe things have happened and you've kind of become jaded, or you just don't feel like you used to feel, you can reignite those feelings through serving another person by using the actions of love to build your esteem for them, and then also to build their esteem for you. And it's easy to even just journal your way through that, and that's why there was a Love Dare journal, and kind of see how your feelings change, and you can start to see the small signs of other people's change as well. So and then also maybe what you need to do as part of coping and overcoming your adversity is to distance yourself. Maybe there's not a solution. I would say, the way God would tell us would be to use love first, and to try to reconcile first. And if that fails, then definitely the distancing is, especially if it's abusive. Really, I'm talking about something that is more abusive in some way, or really harmful to you in a very truthfully negative way. That distancing would then be the negative side of that. So that's if you're in a relationship, if your relationship is maybe part of your adversity. From a more general view of adversity, uh, really the superpower of service is the wins that can be created. So you have a win-win when both sides, you serve the other person, they benefit from your service, and you also benefit from the service that you do to others, as we just had talked about in the beginning. So there's a superpower here of service that is found in the wins that are created as we walk this out. So when you think generally, as serving as a strategy to help you overcome adversity, is really just generally speaking, you can just looking for opportunities to serve people who have nothing to do with your particular issue or problem. So you're just looking around. Where do you see need around you? Open your aperture, open your awareness, your sensitivity to the people around you, and step away from your problem. Put that in God's hands. Step away from your adversity. Try to put more of it in God's hands, that seek first the kingdom principle, and just look around in your life. Where are people around you hurting or in need, or that some way you can help? And then jump in there. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be small. It can be a smile. It can be holding the door for somebody. It can be just helping someone with a project at work that they need a little extra help in. Whatever it can be. There's a multitude, a billion different scenarios here where we can help other people. That is the real power, where you find those, and then it comes back and it helps you. And God has a way of bringing this back to help us. So we'll talk a little bit more about it. But the next thing we really want to emphasize here is how serving is close to God's heart. I mean, Jesus came to serve. He came to seek and to save the lost. He gave his life as a ransom for many. Philippians chapter 2 and verses 5 through 11, there's a really powerful passage here that talks about Jesus and what he did in his mission. And it says, he did not consider equality with God something to be grasped. So he didn't try to hang on to say, hey, I'm God, you're not. I shouldn't be treated this way. He didn't live his life on earth that way. He emptied himself, it says, of his divine right. And he humbled himself and took on the nature of a servant. Now we'll talk about humility in a future discussion, but he became human. he served mankind. Everything he did on earth was serving. He was helping people. He was healing people. He was delivering people. He was teaching people how to draw closer to God, how to find God, how to trust God, how to find strength in God. And everything he did was to bring good for humanity. Every single thing, even some of those hard things that we see where Jesus confronted the religious leaders of his day, the hypocrisy, he confronted the hatred, the anger, the self-centeredness. He confronted all of that, the desire to be number one in everybody's esteem. He confronted all of that in his walks and his journeys and his interactions with other people. And then ultimately he culminated that when what Philippians says, he became obedient to death on a cross. A horrible, horrible way to die, to suffocate like that after being tortured and tormented. And he offered himself as that sacrifice for all of the evils this world has committed by all humanity, even up to this day, including you and I, and what we've done in our lives, and not only what we've done up to this day, but what we do tomorrow. He took all of that. He became the sacrifice, the sacrificial lamb for all of that. In God's economy of justice, those evils had to be paid for, and he took that payment all upon himself that we deserve, that we earned. And so he served us in being that sacrifice in our place, that ransom. That's just one of the things that Jesus came to be, a ransom for many. That's what that means. He took on the penalty that we should have had to pay. So that's Jesus' ministry and life in a nutshell, on how he served us. And then, he walked this earth with disciples who he was trying to prepare to carry on his earthly ministry after he left. And there's an interesting story here of the mother of James and John, right? And she requests that James and John be able to sit at Jesus' right hand when he comes into his heavenly kingdom, and all the rewards are handed out, that James and John should be number 1 and 2 up there with Jesus. And the disciples, when they heard about this, they had a really caustic reaction. They were just indignant that, James and John should get preferential treatment over them. And this is found in Matthew chapter 20, starts in verse 25, where I think she makes that request. And then Jesus comes in and he sees all this, and he brings this correction to the situation, and he tries to reorient them. They have gotten off kilter. The compass has led them far away from true north here. They are really off the path, way off the path. And Jesus brings this correction. And it's important that we hear this, because I think, it's easy for us to get off the path, especially when we live in a world that selfishness and pride and power and wealth are so worshipped today. And so many people want, this is their aim. And we have got to get back to, what does God really want from us? What's his dream for us? What's his purpose for us? We've got to get back to God's values. And so Jesus says, look, worldly rulers love power, and they love to lord it over others. And we see that all around us, right? People love power and all that it brings. But he says, if you want to be great in the kingdom, you must become a servant. You must become the servant of all. So we have this really completely countercultural statement here, that if true greatness is what you're after, then you have to be a servant. You have to be a servant. And back then, just as today, we haven't changed as people. Yes, we have the internet, we have all these cool gadgets and every gizmos, but fundamentally as people, we haven't changed much in thousands of years. Back in Jesus' day, People wanted power, fame, and riches and all of that stuff, just like we do today. People served like the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the day. They served because they had expectations that their serving would bring them power and control and influence over the people, and people would just honor them, and they would get all this attention. It's the same as today. So many people serve with an expectation of reward, of expectation with attention. They're going to get something out of it. And a key principle for service that's really going to have spiritual power and that's going to help us is that we don't have that expectation. That we don't say, well, I did so much for them and they can't even help me with this, or they couldn't even do this or that or the other thing. We've got to make sure that the focus of our serving is serving God and serving other people, not serving ourselves. That we don't let our service be hijacked by a self-serving attitude and mentality that then really corrupts and removes the positive benefits and power of serving. So, yeah, it's easy to expect payback, and it's natural, part of our nature, to expect payback. And that's why a lot of things that are a focus of true spiritual strength are counter our nature, because that's where the power is. Otherwise, everyone would be would be benefiting. And we know that, it just, even though it's natural for us to want to get paid back and rewarded for what we do, it is not where the true benefits are, the health, wholeness, and well-being are, and it's not where the spiritual power is. So we've got to really guard ourselves, make sure, like even through social media which it's so easy to say, look at me, look what I've done, and to gain likes and attention and just, get that acclamation, and then people chime in and give us a smiley face, and we feel good that other people are recognizing what we're doing, and it just becomes a real focused, self-serving enterprise. So we really have to be careful on social media and with what we tell other people. We really don't have to tell other people about the good we're doing. It's really can be between us and the other person, and us and God. So I would say, don't try to manipulate the responses you get, or manipulate the situation so you get rewards. Let the rewards unfold naturally. Let them surprise you. Let God have sovereign control of how these things benefit you, and don't try to manipulate the situation so you can get the rewards you want. This is really what Jesus meant when he said, if you want to be great in God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. Take the least seat. Let God promote you. He talked about that banquet, and he said, don't come in and choose the seat closest to the master. Take the least seat. Let the host say, hey, come up here. That's what he's talking about. Don't be your own self-promoter. And I know in this society, and we think, so many, well, I've got to promote myself. And there are certain situations, you have business, whatever, where you have to promote yourself in order to make a living. But on the personal side, with your own spiritual character and, your relationship with other people on a personal basis, and your relationship with God, do not be that way. Do not look to just be constantly always promoting yourself. Recognize that the spirit of serving is very opposite the spirit of this world, that it is countercultural to serve others without expectation of reward. It's countercultural to serve God and just make it about God and other people, and not make it about ourselves. So if you want to be radical And if you really want to loose the spiritual power of servanthood in your life, then you must focus on God and others and not be self-serving, as I just that point I just made. So that goes back to the motive. Why would we even do that? Is because a lot of times we feel like we're not valuable without other people's affirmation. And the truth is that you are valuable without any affirmation from others. You're valuable because you're a child of God. All of us are. And we're valuable because God loves us. It has nothing to do with other people and what they say and what they do. It's just simply because God loves us. He created us. He values us. And so when we think about that, we don't have to get from other people or manipulate other people to give us what we want or what we think we need, because God provides that for us. We can accept that. We just need to believe that and have faith in that, and work from that position. So, God created us for relationship with Him, but He created us to serve, and Jesus came to serve. And so you and I get the privilege of continuing that mission of service that God initiated and that Christ walked out in this earth. So I would say, look, serving is your purpose. And the question is specifically for an individual person, how do I do that? So people are always saying, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? I don't know what my purpose here is. Well, doing good and serving other people around you is your purpose. That's your purpose. And that's all of our purpose, is to serve God, to love God, and to love other people. So it's really comes down to how specifically do I do that? Well, each of us have been given specific gifts, talents, abilities, knowledge, experiences, and we can use all of that very specifically to serve. So one person may serve other people by encouragement and by kind words, and another person may serve because they're good at something and they can use that skill that they have to help other people, not just themselves. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I know people who've used baking skills to be a real encouragement to other people and to give and to help. Some of us we can give in other ways. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I just want to read a passage out of what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25, 31 through 46. He said, he's talking about this parable of the sheep and the goats, and then he says, come, inherit my kingdom, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me into your house. I needed clothes, and you gave me something to wear. I was sick, you took care of me. I was in prison, you visited me. And then the people who have God's approval reply to him, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty and give you something to drink, and see you a stranger and take you into our homes, or see you in need of clothes and give you something to wear? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And he will answer them, I guarantee you this truth, whoever did one of these things for the least of my brothers or sisters, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you did them for me. And so what we see here is that, our purpose is very easily in just serving other people. And you go, well, how do I do that? Well, one of the quickest, easiest ways is, what are the needs right in front of you? We've made a practice whenever we see somebody and who's out along the street and they've got a sign, and I know, saying, hey, we have a need. And I know, sometimes these people, they're making a good living out there, perhaps, but it's not for me to, in our opinion, it's not for me to sort out, which are the legitimate needs which are not, and not everybody believes that way, but that's what we do. And so we're always giving to them just because that's, a need. That's what people have. That's the situation they're in, their struggle they're in, and they're out there, and so we just help. Or if a person needs food, just carrying around food, or you see someone who has food, going getting or needs food, and you go and get them groceries, or you get them something at a fast food place just so they have a meal. Or just there's so many ways. Even like a person who's they're having car trouble and nobody's stopping, and you can at least try to help them in some way. So there's a lot of ways of doing good that you can see in a moment where there's a need, and that's living out your purpose. And in serving your purpose, you find meaning. So we often couple meaning and purpose. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Well, that purpose is we're here to serve in the ways that God asks us to serve, and the ways that we have been built to serve, the way He's created us to serve. So there's those obvious needs: the person in prison, the person who's an orphan, the person who's hungry or thirsty or has no clothing, and all those ways that you can serve in those kinds of things. And then there's the ways that God's created you, and specifically you can use your strengths and knowledge and abilities to help other people around you. And in doing those things, you find your meaning, the why am you here. Your life is meant. In other words, it has meaning. Your life is meant to be lived in relationship with God. And out of that relationship with God, you are meant to serve others. You find meaning in serving others. That's to love God and love other people as you live in that relationship with God and love others. So your meaning is found in the blessing of God and how your life blesses and amplifies the benefits of others around you for their greatest good and for the greatest good of God's work in their lives. So we're working for other people's good, and we're working for the greatest good of God's work in their lives. And that's specifically, sometimes you'll hear that about building God's kingdom, or God's kingdom in people's lives. So again, the specifics vary. So how you specifically serve in a more deliberate or ongoing way is based on the unique fingerprint that God has given you. That's who your unique ability set, but it's still found in service. So how has God equipped you? What abilities, talents, experiences, gifts, knowledge do you have? What are you good at? And then where are the needs around you? And the sweet spot is where those needs around you intersect your particular abilities. But they don't have to intersect perfectly. You can still just get out there in any way that you can, and meet the needs of others around you who are in desperate need. And then you can also find ways to put your talents and abilities to work to help other people. And again, that can be small at first. You just start with smiles and helping out where there's just an obvious, small, quick need, and then moving that into a greater, that's the start of a greater philosophy of life, and where in your purpose and meaning in life, you strengthen yourself, and you build a commitment and a strategy for how you can use these gifts and abilities in service to really do greater good with your life as a whole, across your life. So you kind of have a strategy of service for your life. And so as you serve other people and do this, even starting small, even the small things can have a big impact on you. They will come back to you Again, don't manipulate things to make them come back to you, but as you serve others, they will come back to you. And even if you don't feel it at first, you say, well, I'm serving, but I'm not really, nothing's happening. This is a process. It builds up. And so sometimes you'll get it immediately. You'll feel good about what you've done. And someone will say, thank you so much. And it's a very positive experience, like just even a small thing. But sometimes we find the greater, change in your feelings from the situation you're in takes a little bit longer. And you may not particularly feel better, but if you continue to do this over time, those feelings will begin to follow. You will begin to feel better. So there'll be those positive interactions are going to come back to you. You will start to feel like you will be drawing closer to God by obedience, but you'll start to feel like you're drawing closer to God. You'll start to feel better, and it give you a more positive feeling as a whole instead of just a positive feeling in the moment. And you'll also be maximizing your potential for good things and change to come to your situation. So as you do this, you'll just really see, your life will begin to change, your attitude, your perspective will begin to change, and it will bring some positivity to your life, even if your specific situation isn't changing. But in faith, my final word would be, my encouragement would be, in faith, the key here would be to hold on to this course and to continue serving and trusting God, that as you put the kingdom of God first and you put God's priorities to love people and to serve people first, that you will maximize that potential for a miracle in your own life. You will eventually see things change in your own life, because that obedience is going to bring rewards, and you will see that this will become one of the ways that you find your way moving out of your season of adversity or your particular situation. So it becomes part of the solution to whatever you're going through. And that can happen in so many ways. I couldn't possibly explain them all, but it is just, I would just encourage you with that. So keep serving, keep trying to show your love and value to other people by serving, and you will see good things happen in your life, and find that meaning and purpose in God's purpose for your life, and living in relationship with Him, and loving and serving other people. So God bless you. Have a great day.